Hey everyone, welcome to the Mel Carmine Show. I'm your host, Elisa V. And we've got a really cool show for you today. I am welcoming Lisa Stermerhorn and Honey C. Golden. And we're going to get into some pretty interesting topics. We're going to dive into talking about the Earth and what shape is it really. And we're going to just let our conversations go where they go. So, welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So let me just give our audience a little bit of background about Honey. Honey is a mystic who helps people connect deeply with their soul and higher self. Through her own profound soul connection, she accesses hidden history, past lives, and emotional insights to guide others in their spiritual growth. And Lisa Schermerhorn is the international best-selling author of In Every Belief is a Lie and a featured cast member in the transformational film Zero Limits with Dr. Joe Vitale. As a subconscious mind expert and quantum healer, she helps people release limiting beliefs, ancestral trauma, and emotional blocks to step into their highest potential. So, how are we doing today?
Good. Thanks
Really
for
good.
inviting us.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you guys. And just
Oh,
like for anyone who's watching, we just had this little conversation off camera. I seem to be glitching a little bit. So we are aware of it. We don't know why. We're kind of thinking maybe there's a reason, but we're just going to plow ahead and keep going. So we're aware of what's going on, but we don't know why. So So, ladies, I know that both of you are involved in so many things spiritually, and I would love to start the conversation, if you wouldn't mind, in talking about like where we are. I think this whole glitching thing is a nice lead in. Like, where are we? We were chatting a bit about how we've all kind of having these, I want to call them klutzy moments of falling and getting hurt, and other people we've been talking to. And it seems like it's not really an accident that those things are happening. Any thoughts?
I think we're in the great crumble right now. So we're watching the 3D crumble away. And we're also shifting timelines so fast right now that sometimes we are getting tripped up. And
Literally.
also, we're releasing things,
Yeah.
which causes sometimes pain. Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
thoughts, Lisa?
No, I was just gonna say, yesterday I tripped and fell down my stairs and my floor is concrete, so that wasn't fun. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who fell moving her son in to dorms in Boston, and she broke her wrist and had to have surgery. It's like everyone's tripping and falling. And I'm like, this was like a big thing I did as a child. So it's been really interesting because I used to fall a lot as a little girl, and now I'm like falling again, and it's a bit unnerving because it's taking me back there, but obviously it's stuff that I needed to clear.
Yeah, so just explain that a little bit. So with the when the timelines are sort of moving quickly, like honey, you mentioned that. Like, can you explain that more? Go into a little bit more depth about what is actually occurring? I mean, it's to a lot of people those are buzzwords and buzz expressions, but what does
Mhm.
that really mean?
So, what it really means is basically we live in a multiverse. And to really comprehend that is like I see it as a kaleidoscope, basically. What part of the kaleidoscope or what shift in the kaleidoscope are you creating? And we're shifting so quickly right now. And movies to watch would be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse or Everything Everywhere All at Once. So if you watch those two movies, then you'll kind of comprehend what we're actually doing. And we're tripping ourselves up. So I've been experiencing some of the same things that I experienced as a child just recently as well. And it's so that we can clear them. But time doesn't really exist the way that we think it does. So as things continue to change, time will start to morph more and our brain will accept that change.
Mm.
But right now, it's not ready to accept it. So think of it as like a portal. You're always going through a portal, but you don't always see it that well. So you're tripping. you're not getting your whole body in the portal at the same time.
Hmm.
Wow, what an
Yeah.
interesting way to explain that. I love that. And is this do you think that there are only certain individuals? Like, do you think this has to do with the level of awakenedness that people have that they're experiencing this more? Do you think it's across the board, but maybe people aren't putting, aren't connecting with why that's happening?
I would say it's only the awakened people. Unless someone is a non-player character and they're deciding to actually exit what we're doing right now, because we're in the process of a big thing. Ascension is a big thing. So I would say it's just the players, because the players are readjusting right now. So anybody that's awake
Yeah.
is a player and they're participating in what we're doing here.
Very interesting. And I know that we started chatting off camera a little bit about, um, that thing in the arm that a lot of people, not just this last go round with the pandemic, but prior, we've all, for many years, those things
Mhm.
have been used. And you ladies were, talking about some really interesting observations and things that you're doing, in the healing. Let's just get into that because I think that's very fascinating what you were saying.
Well, I want to say a year and a half ago, I had some concerns because I had some loved ones who had done that, and I was looking for a way to help them. And I've been a healer for 25 years. I've mostly worked in shamanism, uh, hypnosis, all kinds of things in the unconscious mind. But this got me back to my old actual healing work that I hadn't done in a long time. And I wanted to prove it because there's one thing when someone comes in, they say, "Oh, I feel better." But what does that mean to anyone? So I was talking to a friend of mine who's a functional medicine specialist, and she said, you need to find dark field microscopy, but which is live blood analysis. But in the state of Vermont where we live, that's not allowed. So you're gonna have to find it somewhere else. And I was like, well, that's interesting. You're not allowed to look at your own blood under a microscope because that's considered practicing medicine without a license.
Even though it's yours,
So I found,
even though it's yours, it's part of your
yes,
body. Okay.
yes. So I found a friend who was down in Florida and she knew someone who did that work. So this is someone now, these are people either with that or without. It doesn't matter. People have all kinds of issues in their lives. Even EMFs can impact them. But this is someone's blood that they call that rouleau. It's all sticky and stuck together and the nutrients aren't getting into the blood. They were not feeling very well. And then after the healing, this is their red blood cells. So this is what normal looks like.
Okay.
And Honey and I do them individually, and then Honey and I talked about we wanted to make it available to more people, accessible. So once a month we do healing. That's next Thursday. Is it the 28th, I think, off the top of my head, 12 o'clock
Yeah.
Eastern and 4 o'clock. So that people and their pets, they bring in because I work with an animal communicator, and she tells me how a lot of them, animals, have issues, especially from the required ones
Oh,
that
can I
starts with an
interject
R.
something? So,
Yeah,
I'm sure it's all around, but like if you're going on vacation and you can't get a pet sitter, right? You usually have to board them. You have to bring them to to be boarded.
right,
And my dog, who's now 9, she loves the place. She loves the people, and it's like,
right.
she's going to visit an aunt and an aunt and an uncle there. But they have all these requirements, and I just won't do it. I just won't do it. And
Yeah,
you have to be creative, I guess. I'll leave it at that.
yeah.
But the point is that it's very interesting because if you look at pets, 30 years ago, 40 years ago in their lifespan and where it is today, and we're not even talking about the food, right? Because that's a whole other
It's a
issue.
whole nother
Right. That's a
issue.
whole other
Yeah.
thing. But it's so sad. And I have a cat that I rescued. He was a kitten, and he started having asthma. And my
Mm,
daughter, who was at the time, she was 16, of course, everything mom says is conspiracy and all these
yeah,
wacky things. And I wasn't going to say it. And she went on, did her own research, and she said, yeah, the requirements that they give these little fur beasts, it could cause that. Now, we use some natural things, and fortunately, he seems to be okay, and he hasn't. But for a while there, I was like, is this going to be a lifelong thing, and so I think that the pets are really vulnerable because they put the fear of, same as they do with humans, but they put the fear of God that, you have to do this. I guess the same as it goes with children, right? It's that same
right,
motivation
right,
of fear. But, when we think of that, they're also telling us how if they don't, we're going to be impacted, they'll bite someone and all this kind of stuff. And they're basically just, in my opinion, they're using all these things again just for money. And,
yeah,
to keep them just as sick as they've kept the humans all these years. And now we go into
right,
more other species, right? To try to destroy them in
right,
a natural
right.
way. So I didn't mean to digress, but so
No, but my friend who's an animal healer would get messages from the pets, from the cats and the dogs, to ask me to come in and do this work to remove the that from them. So, and when we do the group healings, we invite people to bring their pets in and leave the door open so that they can leave because it's strong. It's meant for humans, but so that way they can leave when they've had enough. A lot of them will just fall asleep.
the pet.
So it's a nice, yeah, the pets will just fall asleep during the healings. Yeah.
So can I ask you, are the healings that do you have to be in person? Can you be like virtual?
It's all
It is
virtual.
virtual.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
all virtual.
And then it's
Okay.
recorded too, so that they can do it again if they want. Mhm.
Okay, okay. And the healings that you do it's the same, like in other words, if it's you and your pet, it's just the same. Or are they different types of healings depending on the species?
The person is choosing the healing. So whoever's in there, so we might have a group of 100, 150 people,
Right.
and they're choosing what they want to heal that day. So we're guiding the way for them, and we're breaking contracts and dealing with generational curses, and all of that kind of stuff is happening within the healing. But they choose, like if they have arthritis and they want to work on that, or a migraine, or whatever's going on with them, they figure out what they want. And the pet is doing the same thing, only they don't need parameters like we do. Like they don't have to write it down like we do, whereas we ask them to write it down for themselves.
Yes.
And because we are all sovereign at this point, healing is also a sovereign thing. We're just guiding the way as they let go.
So what about somebody who feels like they don't have a specific problem, but they just know intrinsically that something might be off, or they knew because in their past they had some of those, those things, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's some residual or some, can you just go into this in a very like whatever needs to be
Oh, yeah.
healed, I'm open
Yeah.
to, and okay,
Mhm.
okay. I think this
Yeah.
is wonderful. Just repeat again the schedule for when people can be part of the healing.
So
It,
it's,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Lisa.
August 28th. So it's a Thursday, and there's a 12 o'clock and a 4 o'clock Eastern time. We do it monthly. It's $44.
Okay. And how
Yeah.
do
And
people
It's
it's
get in
on
touch with you to do this? What site or do they go to sign up and pay?
balancingbodyandsoul.com.
Okay. And I'll have that in the description box as well,
right.
since
Yeah.
this is an ongoing monthly thing. Yeah, that's amazing. And I want to just ask you guys personally, um, how did you realize that you were a healer? Like what was that defining moment? Did you just always know? Did you have kind of an awakening that made you, get in touch with this important part of yourself? Maybe Honey, we'll start with you.
So I was married for a long time to a person who chose to do things that weren't very good for their body. And so I read a short book and I skimmed it about Reiki. And then I decided, well, I'll just do that. So I figured out how to do it on my own and I just started doing it. He had what was called a cluster headache, which in the past they would call it unalive headaches. People would unalive themselves.
Really?
And it's basically worse than a migraine.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was able to just release his headaches with that. So I knew that, you know, that was part of what I was here to do. I didn't really do anything about it until 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And what about you, Lisa?
Mine started with a nervous breakdown.
Okay.
So,
A lot of us do. I can attest on my own
yeah,
story.
I was 38, had a nervous breakdown, didn't want to be here anymore, and I was going to conventional therapists 2, 3 times a week and I wasn't getting any better. And someone suggested a hypnotist. And I was like, don't they make like you quack like a duck? I didn't understand how someone would help. But those are stage hypnotists that people think of. There's therapeutic hypnosis as
Right.
well.
Of course.
And you literally ask, take me to the root cause, and boom, you're there. And
Mhm.
so you can go to in utero, you can go to when you're 2 years old, you can go to an ancestor, like a great 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 grandparent. It's amazing because your higher self has the answers to everything. So we were communicating with my higher self, and the more clearing I did, the more I wanted to be like her because she amazed me. And so she was my mentor, and because of her, I became a Reiki master. I learned hypnosis. I went on to study shamanism and all of these things because as a child I was a very poor student. I had dyslexia, undiagnosed, and I thought I was stupid.
Hmm.
So I had very low self-esteem growing up. That was part of the reason why I had my breakdown. I thought I was worthless. And then all of a sudden I was like, "Oh my God, I'm good at something. Like I can actually do something and I can help people." And then I went on this mission to study, and it's 25 years. And it's morphed, it keeps changing. I keep adding tools to my toolbox. I keep discovering more and more abilities that I have and train for new things. And it's been such a gift to team up with Honey because she's been also a great mentor for me. She's taught me a lot, and it's been quite a gift.
Oh, it sounds like it. It's funny you say about, kind of the nervous breakdown or the trauma or whatever that kind of triggers this kind of thing. And I always had a feeling, like I always felt like a healer, but what did that mean? My family was in business. I went into business. So, it was very far away from sort of the medical alternative world. But then I went through a
Right.
divorce, separation in 2015, which I wanted, but in 2016, everything just hit. And like you, I mean, I was literally shaking. Like the anxiety was so awful, panic attacks. Same thing, I wouldn't say that I wanted to die, but I didn't want to live. There's sort of a distinction. I had kids. I didn't really want to die, but it was like, what am I doing? And and I just felt this shift. And I literally, this one summer, I read and watched, I mean, like 30 books, and I couldn't get enough information, and everything opened up. And it literally, like when people say you awake, it literally feels like you wake up. Like I didn't know what was happening when it was happening because I was in conventional therapy. And of course, they don't under whether they understand, they don't understand, or it's just not what they do. The spiritual aspect wasn't coming into play. It just wasn't. It was very concrete. You're going through a divorce. Your
Right.
mother did this when you were 5. All that kind of typical stuff. And it's just been amazing. And then I remembered something a psychic told me because I always went to psychics, and they kept, oh, everyone would always ask me whenever I go to psychics, they're like, "Are you a doctor?" And I was like, "No." They're like, "Oh, no, no, you." And one psychic finally said, "You're in the medical field." And I was like, "No, why does everyone say that? I would never want to be a doctor," thinking medical school and, all that kind of stuff. They're like, "No, no, no. it's, I guess, a better way to say, are you a healer? And then I remembered that, and I was like, found what, my mission was supposed to be and help people. And, it's really amazing how we all just, and then I started going down all these rabbit holes, obviously, and meeting people, and you start to feel like you're finding your tribe, right? Like, I don't know about you ladies, but growing up I never really had that like tribe, like my friend, friends, like they got friend groups and they're so connected, and I was like, I don't have that. But then like in my 50s and now I feel so much more like I'm with the people and the mindset and the like we just are giving to each other without
Right.
knowing that we're giving to each other to kind of help everybody, ascend and just feel good about the job that we're here to do. So what I want to ask you, Lisa, when you started to do the healings with the blood,
Hmm.
how did that kind of like um how has that evolved? Like, in other words, I guess what I'm asking you is how people started to recognize that this is what you guys were doing, right? And did it just kind of start to snowball that more and more people started to realize they needed this?
Well, I started out, see, in my personalities don't tell me what to do. So the
We're
original
all like that.
people who trained me said this has to be done in person. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. So I started doing it at a distance. And then they're like, you can only, you can't do it in groups. I was like, oh, watch me. So I started doing it in
And who
groups.
were these people
So
that were telling you? Were these
I
spirit?
don't want to talk about that, but it
Oh
was
no, I
just
didn't
one
know.
of
Are they
those.
spiritually minded or are they more conventional?
No, they were people who I trained with.
Okay,
But it was just they wanted to control what the output was going to
I
look
got
like.
you.
And I was like, no, no, I'm not going to do it that way. And it just evolved. And it was supposed to start out as only for this thing. And then it evolved for a lot of different things. I had a friend of mine who had been through 13 rounds of something that started with a key, with a C. She'd lost her hair and everything, and she was anemic. And I did a healing on her, and she had gone to the hospital and had her blood checked,
Mm.
and she had almost no red blood cells. Like she was really, really sick. And then after the healing, she went back, and her levels were almost, her red and white blood cells were almost normal. Now, I have to say, this isn't 100% of the time because people have an emotional attachment sometimes, or they have contracts that they need to break. So that's part of what Honey and I do as well, is breaking old contracts. Because there are a lot of people who say they want to get well who really unconsciously or consciously don't,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
there's a benefit that they have to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, gosh, we see this all the time. We had a conversation, I think it was on one of the podcasts that I do, the forecast every Monday, and we were talking about like, okay, with some of the new technologies and the med beds and all this stuff that's coming, we're going to just see the whole medical, the allopathic medical industry go down. And it wasn't me, but one of the other people was like, no, I don't think that's going to happen because you're still going to have so many people, like not all at once, because people are not going to buy into that. And they're still going to be very attached to the old system. And I see it, we all see it in our personal life. You see people in your life, they have this issue, that issue. You offer them suggestions, you tell them a more natural way. Um, and they're just so resistant. So why are they resistant? I guess there's a multitude of reasons, but the point is, it's going to be a process, right, for people to come on board to the power that we have and to the ability to actually enjoy being healthy. I feel like when people hit 60, like I'm 60, and I see people my age, and I'm like, they're starting with going to doctors all the time. They're on a few medications. I mean, and I still feel, 30. You know what I'm saying? Like my
Yeah.
brain and my mindset is that I'm still 30. I haven't left that. And there's no reason that I am going to buy into this paradigm of because you're getting older, and it's an everyday talk. Well, you're getting to that age. Well, you got to start thinking about this. Well, you got to be careful. And it's like, no, I don't. And no, nobody does. So, um, it's just, I guess, the brainwashing and the indoctrination, and that's, I guess, what we're here for. Um, what other things I want to just like there's so many things I want to ask you guys. I know you had an amazing interview discussion with Joe Rosati and you guys got into the whole earth and its shape. Could we kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit? And I know that's like a triggering thing. Have you noticed like people get really triggered with this subject? It's like if you the people that say flat earth, they're like really into that. And then the people that say no, it's a globe and I don't know why we have to be so attached to this. Why can't we just be open to say,
Exactly.
I've never been in space to look at the Earth, so therefore I can't say what I've seen. And therefore, if someone's shown me something, I think it's only makes sense to question whether or not that's the truth and that there might be other possibilities that exist. Do you guys agree? I know you agree with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some of
Yeah.
your thoughts
That,
on this?
well, that was a really big turning point in my life when I was basically pulled up and shown what the earth looks like. And to me, it looked like a giant donut. And it, I was like, well, does that mean the earth is flat? Does that mean it really looks like a donut? And I was seeing it from the top. And I thought it was really weird. So this is a point where I was talking to my soul or my higher self constantly. And then I was given the side view of Earth later. But we're basically on a very, very large planet. And planets are beings just like you're a being and I'm a being.
They're alive.
And it's like a super planet. So we've been relegated to a very small portion of the top of the planet. And the sides, there's nothing going on the sides of this planet. And it's a toroidal field. And I've torqued a lot of people off by saying that. But that's what my higher self showed me. So I repeat it when it pops up and I don't, worry about what the other person is feeling because the attachment to it, like I don't care if it is flat and we're floating around on a disc or whatever, but the attachment is the problem because we think that we live in a solid world. And that's the first problem because it's not. It's a matrix, it's made of light. The body has now been proven to be made of liquid light.
Mhm.
And the reason we have the Schumann resonance is so that things can shift within the body, within the earth. And we're getting light codes all the time. So nothing is static and things can shift by your perception. But I was shown a toroidal field and I was shown that we were only on one portion in a dome that has been the jail of humanity for a very long time. Now that dome is gone at this point,
The
and we
dome
just
is
have a
gone.
firmament. And I do think we'll go beyond. Yeah, the
Yeah.
dome is gone.
So the
It's
firmament that,
funny because
oh, I'm sorry. I was just to clarify. So I know like there's a lot of references even in the Bible, about the firmament and you've seen, whether you believe them or you don't, there's been like experiments where things hit and it can't. So you're saying that the firmament is now gone? Like there's it's open.
No,
Oh, okay.
no. So what
the
I'm
dome.
saying is the dome is gone. So the firmament, think of a terrarium.
Okay.
So we live in a terrarium right now. And it really is a closed system and it will work on its own. And all the weather manipulation has really messed with the terrarium. But we've been in a dome made of ice, so sky ice.
Okay.
And a lot of people have talked about that. But that sky ice dome, basically, that ice acts just like dry ice and it just disappears. It goes back to being atmosphere. And that dome's been gone for over a year at this point, probably close to two. And we've had the firmament, which is the plasma of space above us. And we have this little bubble. that we're in. That's like a pocket of atmosphere where everything's growing. So if you thought of a terrarium, you could think of that we're inside of a bottle, if you want. But that's the information that I've been given. I've seen beyond the ice wall. I've seen what the earth, the things that are going on other parts of the earth. But a lot of stuff is really fluid too. So you have to remember that because we are in a shifting reality right now, and we're the ones shifting a lot of it.
I think that's what's so hard for people to understand because we've been in this 3D, and if it's not something definitive, then it's not real, I guess is the best way to put it. And that's the mentality that a lot of people have been taught, and of course indoctrinated in school and all of that. And you're right, because it's amazing just when you say simple things to people, of course there's probably a little bit of an openness with the people we interact with. But, when you try to explain like energy and everything is energy, like these are concepts that we knew as kids, but we don't retain them, and that,
Right.
our consciousness has the ability to, do certain things. There's a lot of power it, there's I think people just want to be able to feel like everything. I think it gives them a sense of safety to feel like everything is just definable and it is what it is and it's static, right? Because we don't really, as humans, the way we've kind of been developed, we don't like change. So that's too nebulous, for people to.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, so what you've been shown and the ice wall that you're describing, where how did it go? Like you described it, it's this toroidal field, and we're in one portion of it, almost like a terrarium. And there's the firmament,
Mhm.
which is like the plasma. Where was the ice wall, and why is it gone? I mean, to the best of what you might know.
Yeah, so there were two. So one of them started basically at Antarctica, and the map is also a lie. So there's all these problems, right?
Cool.
But one of them was Antarctica. And in old maps, you can see it as a circle. Antarctica was basically a circle around the rest of the continents.
Really?
And that is really more, yeah, that's a better depiction of the ice wall than anything else. So, and then beyond that was another wall that was the actual outside of the dome. So we've had a lot of controllers in between the two walls.
Okay.
And you can think of it as we've been in a corral, like farm animals, and outside has been the grays, the
In that
you
middle
know,
part, you're saying, like in that between the two walls?
yeah, between the two walls, that's where a lot of the negative ETs and the elites that basically were controlling what was going on inside of the corral. That's where all that came from.
Okay.
And that got dealt with before, like, I get about 2013 is when that was
Wow.
finished. So 2013, the outside of the corral was cleared up.
Okay.
And then the inside was addressed.
So, silly question, and I'm being kind of 3D about this, but how was that gotten rid of? You know what I'm saying? Like how did they get rid of that?
Those beings that were there and that in between
Yeah.
were taken out, basically.
So
So we've lived in a very polarized universe. So think of it as a battle. And basically, they were removed. So it's been like a wasteland, except for the few humans that were taken out beyond the ice wall to be more of like the servant class.
okay. And last question, because I know Lisa, I know you have a lot of thoughts you want to say, but one more thing. When with all that's gone on with like when people say like I have friends they're like, "Oh, I've been to Antarctica." Like where have they really been? You know what I'm saying? Like because we all have this vision of like the continents, right? And then Antarctica's over here and this is over here. So I just was thinking about this. I was just talking to someone the other day and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've been to Antarctica and we've been here." And I'm thinking I was thinking at the time, but now that you've actually taken it to the next step for my, visualization, where do you think they're going?
They're going to the very edge of Antarctica, a
Yeah.
very controlled space that's been set up for people to visit,
Okay.
and that's it. Like they're not getting to see the interior. It's a massive space, and they're not seeing all of it.
Okay. So it's a little section
Yeah.
and we don't know is that north or south or east? Like, do we know it's that's what I'm saying when they say where are they?
It feels southwest, but
Okay.
I'll be honest, all of the whole map is like a lie. So we have a really big challenge right there. Like when I tuned into where's Australia, where's Hawaii,
Yeah.
and those were questions that I've been asked over the years. I got that Australia was just slightly beyond Hawaii, but on the same side of the United States as Hawaii is.
Really?
So nothing is really the way we think. And I feel like a lot of the flight paths and the speeds that the airplanes are going and all that kind of stuff has really been manipulated to create a certain vision that matches with what we were told,
Narrative.
but it's not real. Just like NASA isn't,
Right.
accurate. And I think this morning was it was satellites that were being brought up. Are they real? I'm like, no, they're not real. There's nobody floating around in the plasma taking pictures of things that are super, super far away. They couldn't even get out of the dome,
Right.
you know?
So
So,
where are those? Okay, I'll give you an example, a really stupid example. But I was watching a movie last night because I like Gerard Butler. I like him.
oh yeah, he's cute.
He's
Yeah,
cute.
I was just going to say he's really cute.
I know. So this movie Kandahar. So he works for the CIA, and obviously this is a movie, but we know that they base a lot of the stuff on things that might or might not be true. And so they were able, with something he put in Iran, they were able to now have the ability to look down and see in real time like what's going on the ground, even though they were at Langley. So how do they do, you know what I mean? Like that's a whole question. I don't know if we want to answer it now, but you think like, and I was sitting there saying like, wow, isn't it amazing what these satellites do? And then like now
Mhm.
you're talking and there's more common sense, right? That I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really make sense. So is it just technology that that we just aren't privy to that they're using to be able to get these kind of, if you're here and then Iran is somewhere else and you're able to see what's going on the ground and it's just some technology that they just haven't
That
told.
would, yeah, that'd probably be more remote viewing or the looking and the glass thing. It
Okay,
would be more of those kind of
got
technologies.
it.
And as far as the pictures that we see that get released, those are all like CGI community, it's not real, but they're using that now to create a narrative of truth, which is great. But even Mr. Obama, um, who was a president, that's what I'm referring to. I'm trying to keep this YouTube friendly. But he said, oh, well, when we can get out of the lower atmosphere, then we'll be able to discover this and this. So they admitted every once in a while that they were never able to get out.
Well,
Yeah.
there was a video I watched, I think it was even this morning with Trump and had Buzz Aldrin next to him. And he's talking about, someone asked, how come we've never been back to the moon? How come we've never updated our technology if we were able to do that 50 years ago? And Buzz Aldrin's eyes were rolling the whole time. And Trump made a reference. I don't remember exactly what he said, but the whole thing was just, it was so obvious. And if you think back to the video that they had, the movie of what they showed, It's like who was filming them as they landed? Like who
Well,
was on
that's
the
just
moon
it. So there
already?
was someone, right? In other words, if you're going to go with the theory of the first steps taken, it wasn't the person that they say because someone would have had to have been there, right? Like to waiting.
To film them.
Yeah, it's
And
and
how
and
did they get that Land Rover on that little pod that they detached? And then they, it was just, all of us were so mesmerized by it and brainwashed by it. And now when you go back and you look at it, you're like, how did we all fall for this? And President Nixon called them from his landline.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
that to me is the more crazy thing, like obvious thing. I don't want to say crazy, 'cause it's so crazy, but listen, when you don't know what you don't know, right? And especially in the 60s, right, was a lot less technology. And then it's just
Right.
been, perpetrate like they just continue it. So it just becomes automatic. And that's the whole thing, right? We're supposed to be critical thinkers and, they've dumbed that down. Um, wow. Did you have some thoughts on what we were talking about with the, toroidal earth and building upon what Honey was saying about what she saw?
Not really, not anything more to add. It's just I think about, how did we end up with rainbows, right? If light is supposed to be refracted and it should be a straight line. So how do we end up with a rainbow that goes like that? If we can go straight up into space, they should go straight up. So these are things that I just find so fascinating. Although I find that when there are rainbows now, there's more color to them. I'm finding
Hmm.
that they're much brighter and bolder and seeing more double rainbows. I think that there's a new frequency. We have a new sun that's come in. And this was crazy because I was in Montreal Christmas evening, and that morning I woke up and I literally saw two suns. I
Really?
saw a yellow sun and I saw let me see if I can find it,
The
but
white sun.
the white, oh, and a white sun.
It's
It
like
was it was cr-
it is crazy. And like for any of us that are, a little older, right, we can remember, like, the kids today are not going to necessarily have that same experience that we had, going back a couple of decades, right, to have that comparison. Um, wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
So if you can see, there's two suns there, and I have multiple pictures. So there was one yellow and one white one. And that was at sunrise.
Hmm.
Wow.
And the rainbows go more, they're taller now
They
too, which
are.
shows you. Oh yeah, that's good, Lisa. I can see it.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Wow. So I want to just, if we could for a second, I want to just jump back to just what you said, honey, about because what you said resonates with a lot of my belief systems about, of course, I've done a lot of research, but still a lot of it comes just intuitively what you feel and what you're given, to from your higher self, wherever it's coming from. But you mentioned like 2013, which very much makes sense because if you follow a lot of the military intelligence, well, we got knocked off Zoom during our broadcast today, but I just wanted to thank Lisa and Honey for joining us, and I hope you guys enjoyed this really interesting video that we did today. Please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to check out dearmrpresident.net to see the trailer for the upcoming documentary, Dear Mr. President.